Indeed, our club was interested whenever Todd came to us in building these buildings, and we knew that one of these days these buildings would be gone, and we wanted to help Todd get them restored back so that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren could come in and see how their forefathers lived. And we spent a lot of time and a lot of man hours and a lot of sweat on building these buildings, and we went out and tore the buildings down, brought them in, and put them back up into the condition that you see now. Todd has furnished all of them with different stuff from different people that's given articles and furniture and whatever to furnish these buildings. But these two cabins here, this one behind me and the one over to my right, is our buildings that we work out of this one here, and over there is our museum or our display of the articles that we build and so on. All of their clothes that you see of the muzzleloading club and all of the pioneers that you see around here, all of their clothing is homemade. And we have people in our club that makes clothing. We have people in our club that builds guns. We have people in our club that are blacksmiths, people that makes horns, and people that makes knives. And all the stuff that we make, we use ourselves, and we try to make everything that we use. And it's indeed, a pleasure for us to try to restore the past and to preserve it for the future of our county and for the future of the people of our county. So behind me here is some of the work that I do, and these are made out of cow horns, and we do different things to them. Some people want them to look like an old horn, and this is one of them that we've stained and looks like a horn that's been carried for a long, long time. Here is a horn that's what we call scrimshaw horn. People scratches on it, and where they got the scrimshaw from is that they would go on long hunts and voyages and so on, and they would sit down and carve on a horn what happened to them that day. And a lot of people would keep this as a record for them. A lot of them couldn't write and so on, but they would scrimshaw on there the activities of that day, and that would keep that in preserve it for them. Here is one of my guns that I've built, and it was built out of scratch and just a piece of wood. And when you come out with a fine product like this one here, why it's proud that we're proud of the products that we do build.
Good morning, fellows, and everybody in McGoffin County. We're here in the muzzleloading shop to talk about leather, which Pioneer, the leather was the most important thing. This leather has been tanned. It's cowhide. Here's one of the pieces of elk that we now have in Kentucky. This is a western piece of hide, which is has a brand on it, so you can cattle were branded to keep up with them. To make something from leather or hide, the hide need to be tanned by wood ashes, which wood ashes has lye in them, calcium hydroxide, and then the item was cut out. This is cut out to shape. This happens to be a pipe bag, which the pioneers carried on their belt, and they carried all their things in there. When we get ready to sew, we need to do a few things very important. One is to have a good knife, an awl, and some sinew. Pioneers got the sinew near the bone of the deer. We sew with 2 needles like this saddle stitch, like many saddles have been made today. So the needles one goes in on one side, and the sinew is pulled through, and the thread comes back up, leaving the thread smooth on each side. That later on will become a pipe bag. When we finish up sewing, you see where I have it tacked, the pouch will look like this. And then we will turn it. So we'll turn it, the inside will become the outside. And over here is some that's already finished. This is a beaver tail. Many pioneers made their pouches with the style of an animal. You can tell that looks like a beaver's tail. This is a heart-shaped pouch, and it's made out of cowhide and buffalo hide. This also has, this pouch has this is a haversack. It has a brand on it, and you can see it's HP, and that way they keep up with their cattle around the countryside. One other very important thing that leather was used for was to put around the flint. So around the flint goes in the flintlock gun, and that would hold the flint in place. This gun being the club gun, which I won last fall at the end of the December, and it's a flintlock, and later on they'll reevaluate, and someone else will be the muzzleloader for the year.
This is the display room or the museum that we have for our club. All the articles that you see in here are things that our club has done, except the statue over here that's done by a fellow here in the county, and this is an engine here. The cannon that you see here is made by one of our members. He works over at Mayo State Vocational Technical School, and he built that from scratch. Over here on the wall is a hand-painted picture that is painted by one of our members that lives in Johnson County. Over here are some leather craft that you have seen before, that a member, Ossie Prater, had done those things, and we build our own clothing here. We have a guy that does the weaving that you see here up here on the shelf. Also, we have a guy in our club that makes arrowheads and makes all of our flints that we use in our flintlock and so on. Down here is a display of a gun barrel that one of our members, Wayne Jenkins, builds all of our gun barrels that we use to build our guns with and so on. And you can see that he went through all the different stages that he builds the guns for. Over here on the wall is a display of how a gun is built. They start out with just a plain old piece of wood up here, and all this is all the different stages that you go through to come out with a finished product like you have here. Over here on the wall is one of our members finds these canes that you see here on the wall, and he whittles those things out, and he paints snakes on them and so on. These are called Voyager sticks that we use. Here in the case here is some artwork that's done by one of our members that is the Toddy Preston, that is the welding instructor at our local high school here. These are very expensive items. If you go to Lexington and you buy those things, and you can see them down there in the bottom of Rep Arena, and they're very expensive in those shops down there. I mean, he does as good as anybody that I've seen. You can see here is a chandelier that Toddy has made. And it's until how much that would cost if you bought it in a shop. And anything that you buy handmade is a lot more expensive than you can buy a piece that's manufactured from mass production. Over here in this corner is all of the plaques that our club has won throughout the years. Every student that our members have a child that's graduating from the high school, that's going on to a vocational school or a college or university, we give them a small scholarship every year. And that is not much, but it helps them. So we want people to know that we don't only shoot and do those things, but we try to help out in any way that we can.
Okay, the early pioneers relied heavily on the flintlock rifle for protection and for food. And to load this weapon sort of has a few steps to it. The first thing you'd have to do is measure out your powder, which you keep in your powder horn. You simply put the powder down the barrel. You would then reach into your bullet pouch, pull out a ball and a patch. And for our purposes here, we're not going to put a ball in the barrel. You wet the patch to make sure that it does not catch on fire. And then you would simply seat the ball and the patch down the barrel using your ramrod. And then for a flintlock rifle, it uses a flint to ignite the main charge of powder that's inside the barrel. Use priming powder, which is a finer grade powder than what you put inside the barrel. You simply fill up the pan. You close up the frizzen, and then your gun is ready to fire.
This is the tool shed, and it's the farm tools and whatever that I've gathered through the years, plus some that's been given to me by other people. This is the green onion jail cell that I salvaged a few years ago when I happened to be mayor of this town, and I saved this particular cell. There were several more. That cell was built to house 4 prisoners. Now, the beds that they used were latched onto the side, and much like the sailors of yesteryear. Now, the reason it was called a green onion jail cell is the prisoners accused the jailer's wife of feeding them on green onion soup. Okay, this is a 2-story log home of Kelsey N. Reisner. Kelsey was a Civil War soldier and came home wounded, so he swapped this particular home to his brother-in-law, Press Arnett. And the late Creed Arnett, who became superintendent of schools, this was where he lived. Now in here we display quite a few items that Selden Holiday from North Carolina has brought us. For instance, the rope bed with the shuck tick and so forth. The 200-year-old rug that was made on a loom. Here is a 18 and 50s iron. You took that iron apart and built a fire in it and then put it back together, or you got some hot coals out of the fireplace to activate that iron. It's sitting in a chair that has been bottomed with cowhide. Here beside me is a 200-year-old trunk that was covered with calf hide. Here is a shoe cobbler's horse. This is, of course, is handmade, and this would hold the leather products, and as he made the shoes of yesteryear. And all of these things, of course, here's the pickle barrel, the old oaken bucket that was in use in yesteryear, and a spinning wheel, plus an old washing machine. And here is a handmade washboard, and you can see that it's had plenty of use. Plus the little pump organ that they would take to different homes when they had funerals. Now, they didn't have funeral homes back in that day, so they had to have the funerals at home. So this is a 2-story log home of Kelsey N. Fletcher. This is our post office general store atmosphere building. Now, this building dates back to 1800, and we think it was built by Silas Montgomery, who married Aggie Sizemore. And over on there, you see several measures or scales that come out of different, some out of the old carpenter store up at the mouth of Half Mountain, and different scales. Here in front of you, you see the cookie case or candy case that come out of the Grace Howard store. In the bottom reaches, you see a replica of the first 4 cabins that we built. Now, the fellow that builds them, a local boy, sometimes goes to Dollywood and makes those particular cabins. Here on this side we depict the old-time post office. Here is a cage from Foraker, Kentucky, and there you'll see the Cow Creek Post Office and Moses Walters, mailboy, who was interviewed by Charles Kuralt, and that's his story there. This cage was by Mrs. Bailey up at Gunlock, Kentucky. And here we show some artwork of Doug Shepard with his chainsaw, but more especially we show a dentist chair over here, complete with the pliers. Then we show the ballot box that's been so controversial in the last election in Florida. And here is a mail post that every home had. The mailboy would come along and take the mail bag and put it over his shoulder and take it to the post office, and then on his way back he would leave it on the post.